How often do you keep doing something not because it's still working, but because part of you is too stubborn to let it go? Ahoy and welcome back to the Captain's Log. It's a little bit of a different format this week. From now on, I'll be talking on a particular topic each episode. And this episode is about reassessing course. It's about the hard decision to let go of something that once really mattered to you, but no longer aligns with where you're going. And it's something I've been reflecting on. It's a pattern that I see in myself and also in many of the leaders that I work with. And it's that tendency to stay the course out of pride and to keep doing something just because you said that you would. You know, we do these things even when the conditions have changed, even when your priorities have shifted, and even when deep down, really deep down, it's no longer the right move. So today I wanted to bring you behind the scenes of a shift I'm making in my own work with this insight and why I've decided to change direction, even though, it was a little bit uncomfortable for me to do so. Some of you might know I've got a podcast called Design on Purpose. It's a guest podcast. I travel around. I got a mobile kit I set up in places and record a podcast with a guest. And at the start of this year, I set a personal goal to have recorded my 100th episode of Design on Purpose. And I've been pretty consistent with it. I've been putting out one episode a week. I built some solid systems around it. I really leveled up my skills with production. I got into a really good rhythm. I went to town on the AI tools. I learned all the AI automations and I got into some really cool stuff to help me become extremely efficient with the podcast. And honestly, I learned a lot. I learned a lot through that whole process. Probably the biggest thing that I learned with it was discipline. I got into a really great creative flow with and I learned a lot from the guests, and I got a bit of exposure and everything, but and it was all great. But a few weeks ago I found myself really questioning whether it was still the best use of my time. And there's a principle from the MG Taylor methodology, which is the design methodology that I'm a practitioner of. And it's a principle that I've carried with me for many years, which is this: the only valid test of an idea, concept, or theory is what it enables you to do. And I'll say it one more time. The only valid test of an idea, concept, or theory is what it enables you to do. And I use this principle to test a lot of ideas and things that I'm working on with my clients. Always come back to that. And so through this process, I sat with that principle and I realized that while the Design on Purpose podcast had been enabling growth in some areas, like brand building and relationships, it wasn't really enabling my most important short-term goals. And right now, what I really want to do is to deepen my craft as a facilitator. And I want to be inside more co-design rooms. I want to work with more leadership and their teams, in going through transformation and navigating change in this world that's, very complex and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I want to run more strategic retreats and work in live systems work. And the weekly production cycle of Design on Purpose was really starting to pull focus from that. It's great. It's lots of fun. I really enjoy it. But it is a lot of work and it takes a lot of my time and my focus. And it's not really where I need to be putting my energy at the moment. And, so through this reflection, it became really clear that I needed to let go of the weekly cadence. And that's not necessarily forever, but for now, that's what I've decided to do. So, of course, that decision wasn't easy for me. I had to sit with some stuff around that. And, I had all the thoughts coming up like, oh, I've already put so much work into this. What will people think if I stop? Am I giving up because it's hard? Will this look like failure? And, when I had a look at like what was beneath all of that, there's this part of me that this old part of me that didn't want to let go. You know, it was this part that wanted to prove I could follow through, you know, that feared judgment, you know, that thought walking away from a public goal might make me seem flaky or unreliable. And I really value my reliability. I'm someone who's super reliable. You know, I like to deliver on time to spec. I like to exceed expectations. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I'm going to say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be there. So, you know, reliability is a really big part of my value system. But, you know, through all that reflection, here's what I realized. Sometimes the things we keep doing are not aligned with our future, and they're actually just aligned with our past. And if you have a look at the word decision, the word decision actually comes from the Latin word. The root word is decidere. It's a Latin word which means to cut off. It literally means to cut off all other options. And often when we make a decision, we cut off other possibilities without realizing that new information has emerged. And, you know, the world has changed and we've probably changed, and yet we still keep moving as if we're on the same map. And in today's environment, which is one that is defined by exponential change and uncertainty, rapidly shifting conditions, rigid plans are dangerous. And the real skill is adaptability. And if we want to lead well, we need to be willing to realign when the signals tell us that it's time. So I'll ask you, what are you holding on to right now? Not because it's strategic, but because it's perhaps familiar, you know? What are you still doing because of a past decision that no longer serves the direction that you're going? You know, we all probably have something like that if we do sit and reflect around it. So here's what I'm changing with that insight. The Captain's Log is now my primary podcast, and I think it's a bit more in rhythm with my current focus, and I'm finding it's going to probably be a little bit more adaptable. And of course, I'm still going to produce Design on Purpose, but not on a weekly schedule. I'm going to give myself the space to use that energy a bit differently. And, you know, as you can see, I've moved into a different space. It's got a bit of a bigger room. I've built out the studio, a little bit of a studio here, and I'm restructuring my content creation so that every episode like this becomes either a newsletter, social post. You know, I can get a lot more out of it. I can make some carousels and I can share some of these key insights. And I think it's going to give me a bit more leverage without all that pressure. And this shift gives me a bit more of rhythm without rigidity. And I'm hoping it gives me a bit more structure without the burnout. And it's going to give me a bit more space and time to focus on what matters most right now. So, in saying all of that, I've got a prompt for you, a little bit of homework. Here's your prompt for the week. Take a close look at your calendar. You know, take a look at your habits, your priorities, or what are you perhaps prioritizing? And, you know, what are you doing each day, week, and month, and why? Why are you doing the activities that you're doing? You know, have you ever done an audit of these things? And are you doing anything in your weekly, monthly, daily activities that were perhaps, you know, put there from a past decision of an old version of yourself? Are you moving forward, or are you just following some kind of familiar momentum? Are you being led by intention, or are you being led by pride? You know, is there maybe something you're doing out of your, you know, a feeling of obligation or identity that's actually blocking better opportunities? And maybe this week, the real act of leadership is giving yourself permission to change course. So on that note, that's it for this entry. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the channel. And do subscribe to the newsletter, which will be coming out each week. There'll be another episode like this. And until then, hold fast.